Hi world, Daniela here. I'm filming at night, so the lighting isn't that great, but I just really wanted to get this video out. As you might have guessed from the title of this video, I'm not actually in Toronto right now. I'm in Israel. Now, this is actually the third time in 5 years that I've come to Israel. So I feel like I am quite well versed in being a foreigner in this country. Actually, the second time I was here in 2011, I stayed for 6 months as a volunteer. So as far as knowing what it's like to be a tourist in this country, I know a lot. Now this isn't going to be one of those lists that you can kind of find everywhere online, very general, like, oh, go visit this place, go visit that place, because what's the point of just repeating what you can find everywhere else? Okay, so first up, I'm going to give you some do's and don'ts, and then at the end, I'll talk about what happens if you're part of a missile attack. That when I was here in 2011, living in Ashdod, there was several weeks of rocket fire, missiles, I don't know. And so I have had to live through it and I know what to do. So, you know, this is something that a lot of people don't get to hear before coming to Israel. And I know it's a worry to a lot of people, so I'll talk about that at the end. So let's get some do's and don'ts. Do try all the food. Give everything a try. Worst thing that could happen is that you don't like it. Personally, I thought that I would never like bamba, which is a very typical Israeli snack, because I don't really like peanut butter. It looks kind of like a Cheeto, except it tastes like peanuts. I was so sure I wasn't gonna like it. And as a child, every time bamba came near me, I never tried it. When I finally came to Israel for the first time, I gave it a try and I loved it. Don't stay in Jerusalem for the weekend. If you're not religious, and you're like me, that when you're a tourist, you count every single day and you want to make sure that every single day is worthwhile, then honestly, Jerusalem is beautiful. Just don't be there from Friday night to Saturday night, because everything closes down and it's really boring. You can go to Tel Aviv or Haifa. They're both pretty secular, and especially in Tel Aviv, everything stays open. Or you can go to a kibbutz. If you go to a secular kibbutz, then you're probably gonna have a really awesome experience. Wherever you go, make sure that you get there before 4 o'clock on Friday, because on Shabbat, all public services are closed except for emergency ones. So train, buses, etc., they won't run. Do take the train while you're here. Even if you're renting a car or something, the train is so worthwhile. Going from the south to the north of Israel takes like 2 hours by train. My favorite trek along the railway is north of Tel Aviv. The train tracks run right by the Mediterranean Sea, so if you have the right window, you can get a gorgeous view of the sea, and it's absolutely beautiful and totally worthwhile. But then that leads me to another don't. Don't be afraid of the obvious military presence in the country. If you're on the train Thursday or Friday morning, you're going to be seeing a lot of soldiers either going home for the weekend or maybe going back to their base, and they're all really young and they're having fun, they're joking around with their friends, but then they're also carrying military grade rifles. Yeah, that's just the way it is here. Honestly, after a while you kind of get used to it. The next couple of do's are for the girls. Sorry boys that I'm excluding you. I'm not a man, so I can't really comment on being a guy in Israel. I'm sorry. But for the girls, do be prepared that the country can be more sexist than you're used to. The first day that I was here on this trip, I was walking from my aunt's apartment where I am right now to the bus stop so I can go visit my grandmother, and there were some guys working on like the flowers and the garden and stuff next to the sidewalk. And as I walked by, not only do they give me the stare, I also got what? An even worse story than that. In my 27 years of life, I have had my butt pinched twice. Both times it's been in Israel. Both times have been in Jerusalem. One time I'm pretty sure it was by an Orthodox man. Also for the girls, because man, you don't have to worry about this, you have it easy. Do remember to dress accordingly to the activity that you're doing. This is specific if you're going to a religious site. Because if it's something like a synagogue or a mosque or somewhere like you actually have to enter and someone is allowed to bar you entrance, if you are not dressed appropriately, they won't let you in. If it's a public space, say like the Wailing Wall or something like that, No one's gonna stop you from going in if you're not dressed appropriately, but you're gonna get a lot of people that are gonna be very offended by your dress and will give you a hard time over it. So just avoid the conflict and make sure that you're dressed accordingly. Rule of thumb, just carry like a shawl or a thin sweater or something in your purse. That way you can just throw it on in case you're going somewhere that you need to be covered. Back to the military stuff. Don't, for the love of everything green under the sky, leave your bag unattended, ever. In Israel, if you leave your bag unattended, even if it's just like you put it down at a table because you wanted to go to the washroom or you wanted to go pick up your order at the bar, the cafe that you're in or whatever, people will assume it's a bomb and call it in, and the bomb squad will come for your bag. And that is a situation you want to avoid by all means. Don't be afraid of Israelis and how loud they are. Honestly, coming from Canada, Israelis can seem quite rude sometimes. They're loud, abrasive, opinionated, argumentative. They don't ever line up, which I hate. Like, I feel like I've been cheated out of my spot so many times because I've been a good person, I've been lining up, and then an Israeli comes and like sweeps in. Yeah, all that, it seems quite rude to me, but it's not meant to be rude. That's just kind of the Israeli way. Once you get past that, Israelis are actually quite friendly and well-meaning. But yeah, don't try to line up because it's not gonna happen. Do carry around tissues with you because not all washrooms will have toilet paper here. So I mean, unless you are cool with the wiggle, shake, and call it a day, which is fine if you are, I'm not judging. But otherwise, make sure that you have some tissues because you probably may need them. Okay. So now that we got those do's and don'ts out of the way, let's talk about what to do in case of a missile attack. First off, the siren will ring. Depending on what city you're in and how close it is to its respective border, depending on how long it will ring. My personal experience is here in Ashdod, which is pretty close to Gaza, so the siren here rings for 40 seconds. In those 40 seconds, you're expected to find shelter to protect yourself from the possible attack. Most new buildings and houses have a room called mamad, which is basically a security room. It's reinforced and it's pretty safe. It's like the safest place in the building. You go in, you lock the door, and then you pass this metal screen along the window, and then you should stay there until you hear the boom or for several minutes. Okay? If you're in an older building, so there's no mamad room, then the next safest place is a stairwell. If you're in a house, the basement. If you don't have either of those, because you're on the street or whatever, then you have a few options. Option number one, which is probably the best one, is if there's buildings or houses nearby, ring doorbells, and someone will let you in. If you can't do that, but you're close to a shelter, then run to a shelter. If you can't do that either, you're basically out exposed in the middle of nowhere or like in the middle of the street, whatever, and you're hearing the siren, then what you should do is get away from metal, so cars, bus stations, bus stops, whatever. Drop to the ground, cover your head. Yeah, that's not the best thing. Like, that's basically just waiting for something to happen and hoping that nothing does. But realistically speaking, if there's going to be an attack near you, there's going to be an attack near you. At least if you're covering your head and you're close to the ground, if the attack is a little bit, if the missile lands a little bit further away, but there's debris, at least this way you're protecting the most important part of your body. So that's really what you're supposed to do. Yeah, it's scary living through siren ringing and then having an incoming missile. Like, it's not easy, but honestly, it's not very likely that as a tourist you're going to have to experience that. Not only because they're not really as common during times of low conflict, but because Israel has a technology called Iron Dome, which basically shoots the missiles from the sky. So that's really about it. So this has been the third video of my video blog. I am a master's grad from Toronto, moving to Seoul, South Korea in February to teach English. So if you want to stick around and follow me along my adventures, then make sure that you press that subscribe button. I'll put a link for it up there. Please leave me your comments. Have you been to Israel? Do you agree with my list? Are you going to Israel? Do you have any questions? Leave them below. Do you know of any other country that has the same kind of rules around like your bags and stuff as Israel does? Because honestly, I've never been to a country where you have to put your bag through an X-ray machine in order to get to the train. So if you've been to one and you want to share, you know what to do. Otherwise, I'm just starting my video vlog, so I'll take any advice or comments that you have to give me. Thank you!